Hi you guys, hello and welcome. I hope everyone's doing really well. It's been a while since I've made a video, so it feels a little bit weird filming now, but I'm back. When I first started this channel, I didn't want to go 10 days without making a video, so here I am uploading today. I have several other videos that I've already filmed that I want to get out there too. So I have a video on Rhaphidophora tetrasperma, and I have another video on bearded iris that I've been meaning to get out for a while, but I'll probably upload those in the next couple days. And then I have another video on a ficus bengalensis, and then another video coming out a little bit later on a syngonium, a really nice, one of my favorite plants. It's the arrowhead vine. But anyways, today I have a really intriguing plant here. Look at the hanging basket behind there. I'm gonna have to make a video on that too. But this over here is the Pineapple Guava. It's a member of the Myrtaceae family, which is the exact same family as the bay leaf. It's the same family as the regular guava, although this here is technically not a true guava. It's also known as a Guavasteen, and it's also known as a Feijoa, and it's also known as an Aca fruit. This is a really beautiful woody shrub that can become a nice tall tree. Has kind of this really lustrous, shiny dorsal side, and then right on the bottom side of the leaf blades you get this really interesting dusty, silvery, almost blue. When the new leaves come on, oh, and they also have this trifoliate arrangement, which is really cool. So the leaves comes in threes. They almost look like a wind turbine. When they come in, they have this really interesting sort of dust on them, like this rust color. So yeah, this plant, it's really loud. It's always loud back here just when I'm filming, so I don't know why. I just like have the worst luck with cars coming by. Anyways, so the pineapple guava is fully edible. You can eat especially the flowers and the fruits. The fruits are divided into 4 to 5 carpels, housing 4 to 5 large black seeds, and they're about 10 centimeters in length. About the size of a tamarind, if you're familiar with that size, and they're just the most extraordinary, interesting taste. It tastes almost a little bit like mint, it tastes a little bit like pineapple, it tastes a little bit like guava, but it has its own taste. I would liken it almost lemony. You really just gotta try it. It almost tastes like annona, or the sugar fruit, or sugar apple, but just definitely a bucket list. You guys have to try that fruit. So this plant here is native to South America. It's native to Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, Colombia, Brazil, even parts of Venezuela and Chile, just more kind of the higher elevation parts of South America. The higher elevation plains and grasslands in particular. This plant loves grasslands. But it's somewhat cold hardy. It's really quite a durable shrub. But another thing I want to say is, in order to set fruit on these guys, they need approximately 30 to 60 days worth of cold exposure. And by cold exposure, I mean approximately 5 degrees Celsius, nearing freezing. And that'll set your fruit. So as a general rule of thumb, wherever it is autumn or the fall where you live, that's when these guys are going to set fruit. They start off kind of this beige gray color, and then they mature into this kind of almost limey, muted green color, and then you know that they're ready to eat once they start to fall off of the plant. You can obviously harvest them before they end up falling off of the plant, but you'll know that they're at their best flavor when they start falling off. You want to catch them before the birds and raccoons and whatnot get to them, because they will. This plant grows to a mature height of about 20-25 feet. It has a very similar spread. It has a very round crown to it. It can be grown as a multi-stemmed trunk plant. It can be grown as a standard. It can be grown as a topiary. If you guys want to propagate these, right now is the perfect time to propagate them in the northern hemisphere. I recommend getting a terminal bud, cutting it down so you have at least 2 nodes, like around this big, so about 3 inches, and that should produce a viable stock plant for you. And I recommend pinching off the topmost internode up. The reason why I say this is it'll create a basket-like canopy for this plant right off the bat, and then it'll help with corrective pruning as the plant advances. And I think it's a really good idea to get more branching earlier on with these plants, because then they produce a lot more fruit. These guys fruit on second year wood, and many of the grafted varieties will be self-fertile. However, many of the varieties are not, so you're probably going to need a couple of them. This one here was by Monrovia. They're a really, really good company here. I think they're a pretty big company, so you might have them around where you live, especially if you're in Canada or the United States. But most of these are grafted, which means that they are self-fertile. Now, this plant over here has a really wonderful exfoliating bark when it gets older. You can't really see it so much yet just because this plant is quite juvenile. And another thing I want to say is this plant is incredibly slow growing for its first 2 seasons or so. And then as it starts getting a little bit bigger, then it really shoots up a whole bunch of growth. It can put up a good 2.5 feet in 1 year. So, and many, many fruits. Fruits generally will come in October here in British Columbia. In many temperate regions of the world, they'll emerge in October in the northern hemisphere and about March in the southern hemisphere, maybe April. This is also very commonly cultivated in New Zealand, another great global temperate region. And even Scotland, I found that quite interesting. Scotland has a mild enough temperature year-round in some areas, especially around Glasgow, to be able to grow this plant. So another thing I want to say, I just have a stock photo right here of the bloom. They have this really interesting, highly fragmented bloom. Flower parts come in 5 to 7. And they have this, they're edible, they're actually wonderful as garnishes in salads. They have these really interesting stamens and filaments in the center, which attract monarch butterflies. They attract all sorts of different kinds of bees. Flowers will persist in about August, September, so a late summer blooming shrub here, which is a really good time to have some interest in the garden here in the northern hemisphere, because most things tend to be quite green, and then it's really nice to have that kind of tropical punch of color. Now, this plant over here does not like to dry out completely, just solely judging off of what I've seen. This is my second bush. The first one I gave away to a friend. Another thing I want to say is they don't like to sit in really wet soil either. So a good rule of thumb is to water them really deeply about once a week in hot weather and about once every 2 weeks in milder weather. You can grow these in containers. You can keep them back by routinely pruning them. If you're going to prune these guys though, using them as semi-hardwood cuttings, I very highly recommend using rooting hormone. It's a little bit harder to sort of get these guys to propagate. It takes them a while to root. One thing that I definitely want to say about these guys is they like very neutral soils. If your soils are a little bit too acidic, put a little bit of lime. If they're a little bit too basic, you can put coffee grounds in the soil just to up the acidity down to a pH of about 6, 6.5, maybe even 6.8. And they do tend to get really woody. If yours gets leggy, I very highly recommend cutting it down to about 3 inches above soil level and then putting a little bit of mulch down in the winter. These guys are somewhat cold hardy, but they definitely don't like prolonged freezes. They don't like excessive heat either. I think 30 degrees Celsius is as hot as this plant ever wants to go. They're actually in the order Myrtales, so they're somewhat related to eucalyptus too. So think about what a eucalyptus likes. This guy will probably like similar climate. They do very well in near to full sun. They do like a little bit of afternoon shade if you're gonna plant them in an area that gets really intense direct sunlight. Just something to keep in mind. They are susceptible to bacterial canker and shot holes, so if you get some black dots and black rings around, that's usually a bacterial infection on the leaves. Just simply prune out the leaves that have it, or if it's really bad, prune it back by about half. If it's an older specimen, only prune it back by about 1/3. If you guys want to keep these fruit for longer, you can actually make really nice jams. You can make really nice potpourris. You can even grind up and dry the flowers and create a nice perfume. It's very, very high in riboflavin, iron, vitamin C. It's just all in general a really nice fruit. And once again, it has that exfoliating bark. It reminds me of the Acer papyrifera, Acer griseum, the paperbark maple. So if you want to keep these guys happy, just a few takeaways. You don't want to let the soil get too dry. You don't want to let it get too wet. You want to make sure you have really good drainage, relatively neutral soils. They're very suitable for containers. I recommend pruning them back a little bit at the end of every season just to encourage branching. I recommend rooting hormone if you guys are going to. I don't generally recommend rooting hormone just because I prefer the natural root. I prefer using the natural auxins that exist within the plant and their natural hormones. But definitely, I think there's benefits from them. From that, water propagation is also possible, but it does take a while. And if you want to really increase fruit production, just make sure that you're putting it in an area that has adequate sun. They're not too humidity picky, or selective, but they definitely do better outside than indoors. I recommend overwintering these very close to a wall if you're in an area that gets way too cold, because these guys are susceptible to completely dying back in like negative 20 degrees Celsius. But just a really beautiful member of the Myrtaceae family, and I'll have to update you guys when this guy blooms again. Very long-lived shrub too. Just don't get discouraged if it grows really, really slowly in its first couple years. It takes them a little bit of a while to sort of jump